Alrighty, howdy guys. So welcome back to another round of AFL Best Bets. We're into round 21. Season's going pretty quickly now, nearly at the end. And I do apologize for the past 2 weeks, so round 19 and round 20. We missed those episodes just because I've had a bit of work to do with the old 9 to 5, but that's all complete now, so hopefully we don't get any more disruptions till the end of the season. We have a pretty big episode today. We have 5 picks for you today on this Saturday morning. So we'll be skipping the recap for this episode because we do have quite a bit to get through, and we'll do that in the round 22 episode. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so the very first pick of the episode, we're going with the GWS Giants versus the Bombers on Saturday Arvo. And I'm taking Stephen Coniglio 25 plus disposals at $2 at Top Sport. And I like this play just because he does have a very good record against the Bombers. So he has covered in 6 straight, as you can see, 26, 33, 31, 32, 29, and 27 in his past 6 games against them, going back to 2015. And the thing about Coniglio is he does play this ground very well. So just this year alone, he's had scores of 31, 32, 36, 14, and 32. So you can see in 4 out of the 5 games, he's absolutely smashed this line. And it should be worth noting as well, the 14 disposal game, you can even see here on the graph where that lies, was against Carlton in round 9. And he probably wasn't even playing midfield that day. So it's just been in the latter half of the year that they've injected him into the midfield on a more permanent basis with 50% plus CBAs since that round 10 West Coast game that he's been playing midfield. So you can see in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 9 games there, he's cleared 25. So Taranto and Ash are both out for this game as well. So you'd expect him, even though he did miss last week, he'd slot back in and probably play a midfield role, especially given that those two are out for this game. So you can see Ash doesn't get quite as much midfield as Taranto, but they are going to be a bit shorter than they have been in the past few weeks. So I don't think that they would suddenly put him back into the forward line to slot into this team again just for this week. And I like this play a lot. So I am also going to involve Coniglio for our second play of the round. So let's hop into that one. Okay, so for the second pick, as mentioned, we're sticking with the GWS and Bombers game, and we're taking Lockie Whitfield, 20 plus disposals, and lowering the Cogs line down by 5 disposals, and we can parlay that for 188 on Sportsbet. And I do like this one for Lockie Whitfield. Looking at his graph, it's not all that flash. I mean, he's missed 3 times, but he's covered this in 12 out of 15 this season. However, if you take out the injury games against the Blues, so he was injured in round 9 and round 17 versus Port Adelaide. So you can see there's been a bit of a gap. Round 9 jumps to round 13, round 17 to round 20. So if you take out those games, his record is actually 12-1, with the only missed game being 19 versus the Crows on the hook. So he has been still quite consistent this year, despite not being as much of a focal point on defense for the Giants. And overall, against the Bombers, he does like playing them as well. So since 2017, met them 6 times and covered in 5 of them. But more importantly, he's covered this easily in 5 of those games. So 25 plus disposals in 5 out of the 6 games. And the only miss he's had is by the hook on 19. I also like it at this ground. So just like Stephen Coniglio, he plays this ground well. So in 4 years, he's only missed this twice. And even this year alone, he hasn't been quite as good. He's still managed 32, 30, and 20. So his average would probably be in the high 20s, mid to high 20s, given those performances. So I do expect him to cover this game against the Bombers, and also Stephen Coniglio to cover the 20 plus at least if he doesn't get the 25 disposals. Alrighty, into our third pick, and we're going to the Geelong versus St Kilda game, And we're taking Cam Guthrie 25 plus disposals, along with Tom Stewart 20 disposals at 188 at Sportsbet. So the thing about Guthrie is he had a pretty poor start to the year, to be honest. He was a bit out of form, but just recently he's been a lot better and playing a lot more consistently. So in his past 14 games, he's covered this in 10 out of those 14 games. And you look at his four-unders in that time. So he's gone under on 24 twice and under on 23 twice. So even when he has been going under, it's just by the hook or by 2 touches. So he has been very consistent, or a lot more consistent than he was at the start of the year recently. So I do expect him to give this one a shake against a team like St Kilda. So they're not really super strong or super weak in terms of disposals. So if he plays at his average, he probably gets there. And I like this one just because he plays so well at home. So actually, both Cam Guthrie and Tom Stewart play a lot better in Geelong than they do anywhere else. So he's covered this game in 6 consecutive at GMHBA or at Simmons Stadium. So just reading his most recent scores, so 25, 28, 29, 34, 38, 35. And the one game that he didn't cover that this year was his first game in Geelong at 15 disposals when he was still out of form. So he's covered in 6 straight, and most of those have been pretty easy. So I do expect him to do well here. So to put into context how well he does at home, he gets a 5.2 disposal boost in Geelong compared to all other venues in his last 10 games. So last 10 games in Geelong versus his last 10 games in all other stadiums. And the second part of the leg, I do like Tom Stewart as well. So he does get a pretty big boost as well in Geelong, something like 5 or 6 disposals at home compared to other places, just like Guthrie. But he is coming back from injury, so that's the reason why I didn't take him for 25 as well. So normally it takes players a week or two, some 3 weeks to get back to what they were. But I do think he should have enough to get to 20 disposals. So St Kilda aren't exactly the best against backmen, so they do concede the 3rd most fantasy points. But Stewart's covered this 20 disposal line in 13 straight games at home, and his record is 26-2 in the past 5 years. So he should do this against a St Kilda team that do give up a few points, like I said. So I like that one as our 3rd pick. And we're moving into Sunday games now. So pick number 4, West Coast versus the Adelaide Crows. And this one's a bit long-winded than what we normally take, but I'm taking Jack Redden, 20 plus disposals, with Ben Keys 70 plus fantasy, and Josh Kennedy, anytime goal scorer, for 181 at PointsBet. So if you've been following us for a while, you know that I do like taking Jack Redden, especially playing in Perth, because he is pretty consistent there. So he's covered this in 16 out of 18 games overall for the season. But against the Crows, he's covered this in 6 straight. If you look down there, you'd be saying, what the hell are you talking about, mate? He had 18 3 games ago, but that one, should be noted, was in 2020 with the shorter quarters. So adjusted to regular game time, that would have been 22.5 disposal equivalent. So he does all right against the Crows. As mentioned, he does have an unbelievable record at Optus Stadium. He's gone under this literally once in 2 years, and that was against the Blues in round 17 on 18 disposals. It is what it is for that one, but it should be worth remembering as well. So Carlton are one of the best teams in the AFL for disposals allowed to the opposition, and tomorrow he's taking on the Adelaide Crows. So there's a big difference between what the Blues do and what the Crows allow to the opposition teams. So I don't mind that one versus the Crows, and he has been over ever since that time as well. So I do expect him to cover here. The second one in this parlay is a bit interesting one. I've gone with Ben Keys, 70 plus fantasy in every game. So 70 plus fantasy for this game. So he has gone 70 plus in every game this year. He's also gone over 20 plus disposals. So initially I was going to take Key's 20 plus disposals as a leg in this parlay, but I've just gone with him for the 70 plus just because he did get moved forward last week in a defensive role on Adam's side, and I'm not sure if they will persist with that. So he played a good game. He kicked 3 goals and he covered this line, but I'm not sure if they will persist with him as a forward or as a midfielder. But either way, he managed to cover in both, and I like this because the Eagles aren't good or are horrible, in fact, against both midfielders and forwards. So either way, if he returns to the midfield, he'll cover this or likely cover this, and if he stays as a forward, they're not good against forwards either, so he'll likely cover this. So we're kind of covering our asses, or trying to cover our asses, for both scenarios with Ben Keys here. And the last leg of this multi, I like Josh Kennedy. He's kicked a goal in every game at home since round 1 2020. So remember, Josh Kennedy is retiring as well, so they're not gonna let him go goalless, especially because he's hanging up the boots soon. And against a team like the Crows, who they have a fighting chance against in this game, so you'd think that the Crows will let them kick a few, and Josh Kennedy will probably be on the goal scorers list with that one. So this last play on Kennedy, I don't generally like to add very, very short legs to bump up the price, especially as short as this one, because the player could get injured. So if you do want to leave Kennedy out and take a bit shorter odds, I don't mind that one as well. It'll probably be 170 something without Kennedy there. And the final pick of the round, we're taking North Melbourne versus Sydney, also on Sunday Arvo. And Isaac Heaney, 15 plus disposals, and Sydney to win. So you can get this at 177 on Ladbrokes with the boost. And so Isaac Heaney, he has been in decent form recently. So he's covered this in every game in the past month, so 4 in a row. And he does have a great recent record against North Melbourne. So you can see down there, his record is 17, 14, 18, 19, 18, 19, 28, 18, and 25 against North Melbourne. So he does play well against them. And what's more is he plays very, very well at Marvel, which is surprising for an interstate player to do so well here. So excluding injury games, he's only gone under once at Marvel Stadium in the past 5 years. So his record is literally 13-1 at this venue, with the one under being 14 disposals as well. And that was ironically against North Melbourne last year, so late last year. So I'll bring that up. But as you can see here, every time he's played here, he's absolutely dominated, including this year. He's had 18 and 24 here against the Blues, which is a pretty good feat considering how good they are defensively. And North Melbourne themselves, they're not great against forwards. So they are the second worst team in the AFL against forwards. And you'd expect they'll let through quite a few goals tomorrow against the Swans. So I do expect him to have a field day tomorrow against North Melbourne, who he normally feasts on anyway. And Sydney have beaten North in 5 consecutive games here. So even if that weren't true, you have to look at this season as well. Swans are fighting for a top 4 spot, and North are dead last on the ladder. So this game would mean everything to the Swans. They're fighting for top 4, like I mentioned, and it's a nothing game for North Melbourne, really. It's probably better if they lost so that they can get those draft picks as well. So it's really hard to see the Swans not coming away with a victory here. They should get the job done, even though North gave them a bit of a scare earlier in this year. I think they'd learn from that experience, and then they'd come out and beat North Melbourne tomorrow. So I'd expect them to get the job done, and that's our final pick for this round. So quickly going through our picks for this round. So we're going with Coniglio, 25 disposals in the first play, and then backing him up for a second play, 20 disposals, along with Whitfield, 20 disposals. So 1 unit each on the first 2 plays, and then Guthrie, 25 plus disposals, with Stewart, 20 for the Geelong game, and then the longer the longer parlay, Redden 20 plus disposals with Ben Keys 70 fantasy points and Josh Kennedy anytime goal scorer. And finally, the Sydney and North game, Isaac Heaney 15 disposals with the Swans to win. So chuck one unit on each of those and keep it simple. And if you do like this video, please do give us a follow on Twitter at SayandBallers is the handle. And take care, good luck, gamble responsibly, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.